So we're the Dime Store Dollar, and we're here. Hold on, let me start. Try that again. Hold on. Welcome. Yeah. Welcome to the Dime Store Dollar, and we're here, and we're gonna discuss what it's like coming up in the world of authorship. Is that a word? What
Authoring. I don't
are
know.
you doing? Authoring.
I, yeah, I use words goodly.
Yeah, and
You would think that
fantastically.
I would be able to answer that with a certain degree of confidence, claiming a title of writer or author.
Right.
But I use a thesaurus and spell check just like the next guy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, I guess let me start off with a question for you, because one thing that kind of drives me in the stuff that I do is the things that I do energize me. So I kind of wanted to see if writing energizes you or exhausts you.
Both,
Both.
both in about equal measures, and uh, it's it's so much fun to create something and see it grow in front of you. But when it's all consuming, like when you get to a certain point where the story has taken a life of its own,
Hmm.
it you'll find yourself thinking about like running scenes through your head and like it writing itself while you're just watching along, and it'll be like 3 o'clock in the morning and you're still trying to go to sleep. Your brain just won't shut off.
Yep.
So it can be exhausting, especially the sitting down at the keyboard for 10-hour stretches writing.
I think anything creative is like that, isn't it? Like where it just doesn't shut off when you want it to, and it doesn't turn on when you want it
Yeah,
to.
and you're extremely susceptible to burnout. Like I'll have sprees where it's like over a weekend I'll write like 30,000 words and feel like a champion, and then I won't write it, like I'll be so burnt out from that. I'll feel so successful for having crushed it that weekend that I won't go back to writing for like a week or two. I know
Mm.
people say that if you're a writer you have to write every day, but uh, that's what Twitter's for.
Well, like like when you're coming up with a story, what kind of preparation do you do to prepare to write a new story?
I There are some people that just fly by the seat of their pants, and then there are people who plot. I I'm kind of both. I start out with the main outline. I don't even have a character name usually. It's just guy or chick, and then I just go from there. This person is lives here. I try to get like a sense of like who they are, like really quick. Are they middle class, low class? Are they high class? Are they uh, honest, sincere? Or are they arrogant and narcissistic? Uh, uh, are they like a carefree spirit who just does things just to do them, or do they plan things out more methodically? I try to get that sense of the character early on, and uh, then I go from there. Usually, what inspires me to plot out a story is one scene, and sometimes just even one line. And I'm like, okay, why would somebody say that? What situation could they have been in so that they could deliver that perfect line? And then my mind works backwards from there, and then I get to the beginning, and then from there I say, okay, I have to hit this mark in the plot so that I can get to this next mark, so that I can get to this next mark, so that I can
Mm.
get to this perfect scene or this perfect line, and then finish the story really quickly
Right.
because you don't want to drag it out. So I put like the major plot points down, which it could be a couple hundred words to 5,000, and then I go in and then I fill in everything between, just going in chronological order.
Gotcha. Nice. If you were to tell yourself when you were younger anything about writing, what would it be?
Part of me wants to say, don't go down that rabbit hole because you will never get back out, and it will eat up like so much of your life sitting in front of a keyboard or Googling the weirdest things, NSA, I swear, all of that stuff is strictly research. They got to be loving some of my bookmarks though. They're like, this guy's got some of the best bookmarks though.
Well,
Uh,
like, what type of things do you prefer to write? Like, you know, fiction,
uh,
nonfiction, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever.
definitely fiction. I can write about the factual stuff, but I like to be the one in charge. I guess a little bit of a god complex, so definitely fiction. I like to decide what's going to happen, not write about something that is. I guess I like to play fast and loose with the facts,
Mm-hmm.
or what reality will allow. So sci-fi or a fantasy type genre, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you're playing fast and loose, it really brings up, types of questions, like, have you had to deal with any ethical problems thus far in your writing career?
Uh, yes, and I like I like to have my characters feel real,
Mm-hmm.
be real people, and real people are flawed. And there are a lot of really not nice people in the world. So some of my characters end up being not nice people who say not nice things and do not nice things to other people. And when I first got to a point where I was exploring real life scenarios and stuff, I wrote a scene. I'd written this long series, and I got to the point where this scene was supposed to happen, and I didn't. I couldn't go on for like a year because I was like, I wrote this scene, but if I publish this, if I put this online and people read it, these people who have been with me for like the last year and a half following me writing the story, if I post this, are they going to hate me? Because it was a touchy subject and like a really triggering subject. And I wondered if like what it would be like if I or what would happen if I wrote that, what that would say about not just me as a writer or the characters, but my perception on the world. Do I think this is some trivial topic that I can just throw out there as a plot gimmick, you know, or, so I had a really hard time deciding whether to publish that part of the story.
Mm.
I
I mean, that would even be exacerbated by, if if you're basing your characters off of real people. Did you ever
This
do
was
that?
not, I have. I think I based a character off of you.
He must be a real asshole.
Oh, he's arrogant. Uh, he's very sure of himself, but he is also very intelligent. And no, and people that are like, "Oh, I don't base real life people on my characters," you're full of crap because every single character I've ever created is based off of at least some part of some person that I've met, whether it was for 5 years or 5 minutes.
Just kind of
I
picking and
saw, I
choosing
saw,
different characteristics, kind of thing.
yeah, or like how they like or sometimes it's even just how they made me feel when I was around them, and then I build a character based off of that and try to find like pick and choose those traits that might invoke that kind of uh, feeling in a reader as they read that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of speeds up the research process, being able to just pull characteristics from your real life situation. Like, what does the research look like that you spend, like how long do you spend researching before you start a book, or like what do you research typically?
Okay, that is
I mean, you don't have
a
to go into
comp.
exact specifics, but like,
Science, history. Uh, I've even looked up mathematical principles and stuff like that on occasion. Uh, I did a lot of research on the history of the world uh, time periods like the Paleolithic uh, and all that. It was I went back about 100,000 years and went through Wikipedia step by step, reading through it for about a month. Not just free time. I'm talking like at least 6 hours a day reading through it, because I wanted to figure out where the most likely origin of man came from, and how the spread through culture would have been, and once the expansion started happening after the ice age, uh, what kind of tools did they have at the time period, or were they agriculturally inclined, were they growing their own crops, like stuff like that. So I've done some pretty weird research like that. uh, Also, I didn't want to go really super in depth because I didn't want to create a handbook for crazy people, but I've looked up rudimentary things about explosives for a story. Hello, NSA. I promise it's in a book. I'm not going to say what it is up in here, but you can find it. You got all my email addresses and stuff.
Yeah, one of the things that really interests me is writing about history. Like, what kind of like ethical problems do you run into writing about history? Do you, if you're writing about Abraham Lincoln, how truthful do you have to be ethically?
Okay. Uh, for fiction, I always treat it like this. There's a degree, there's an agreement with you and the reader that there's going to be a degree of suspension of disbelief. So you have to keep it feeling a little bit real. It's got to feel like it could have happened. So for Lincoln or any other historical figure, I'd try to stay as close as to their actual actions as I could. But anything else is fair game for me. Why they did it, how exactly they might have done it. Like I consider that fair game and under interpretation under the fictional rules. But as far as like their life and their actions and their character, I would try to stay close to that, as close to an account of them as I can from history. If it was Spartacus, then I'm pretty much making my own dude and just hitting the plot points that he did through history.
Right.
If it's Abraham Lincoln, I'm going to go into as much research as I can to find out exactly his personality,
Right.
to try to keep it as close to that realism as possible. But
Like
that's
how
just me personally. Some people just do their own thing.
yeah, like how long does it typically take you to from start to finish? How long does it take to write a book typically?
Define book. Are we talking how like length?
Um, let's say for this instance, let's say like a short story, like something like manageable within time.
Okay, something readable, something you read within a day,
Yeah,
within a few hours. Okay, so that's probably like 20,000 words ish. I'd say a week.
including research and everything like that.
Research, plotting it out. I can normally do all of the writing if I just sit and stay in front of my keyboard. I can do the writing in 2 days, 8 to 12 hours for both days. So, but I normally spread that out a little bit more because there's other things that I like to do throughout the day
Right. So you're
besides
more of
just
a
writing.
right. You're like more of like a bursty writer. Sit
Yeah,
down for every day for an hour or whatever. You sit down one day and just do it for the full day.
yeah. I can't do an hour a day because I feel like it takes me at least 500 words to get into the flow, to like really get cruising in the story. So, and that takes me like about an hour to get to there before I can ramp up. And in an hour, I don't feel like I'd get that much production done. But if I did it for 12 hours, I would just be in the zone for the whole 12 hours.
Right. Um, I guess that kind of brings up an interesting topic then. The way like you design how you work, or I guess not design how you work, but like sometimes that can kind of steer you into problems depending on how you work. Like so, like what would
Yeah,
you say your kryptonite as a writer is then?
video games. No, that no joke, no joke.
So
I've lost days and weeks to PUBG, like or Call of Duty. So like one of my friends from California will call me up and he'll be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" "I'm writing today." He's like, "You want to play a few matches?" Uh, I was like, I can play a couple,
an
and
hours later.
then and then all of a sudden, it's dark outside, and I'm hungry and tired and cranky, and I realize that I just spent the entire day playing video games, shooting shit.
Didn't write anything.
Yeah, didn't write anything, and then I hang up, like I'm getting ready to get off my Xbox and go to sleep so I can get up the next morning. And I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to play video games tomorrow. I really got to get some writing done all day. And then uh, one of my other friends will send me a message on Xbox. And the thing is these guys know that I have the companion app on my computer. So even if I'm just writing and my Xbox is shut off, they'll send me party invites.
Those
And I'll see that pop up on my, like the right hand side of my
peer
screen.
pressure, man.
Yeah. And then I'm like, one match won't kill me. They're like, come on, we just need a fourth. And I'm like, Gotham needs me. You know, I
Like
can't
how
I can't leave him a man down.
like when deadlines are coming, how do you navigate staying focused and motivated on what you got to do?
If it's less than a week away, I will work every day without sleep if I need to accomplish it. If it's more than that out, I'll just, I don't know, whenever I get to it, I'll get to it.
I think all the creative
But if
stuff
it,
that I
yeah,
do, I think that I work. You see people talk about, well, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I get all my writing done at 3:30 in the morning before everybody wakes up. But I wake up at 3:30. The only thing I can think about is coffee and sleep. But I can be running on no sleep, and as soon as it hits midnight, like I'm ready to just create. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm making shit. You know what I mean? Is that is
I
that
heard
is that
some,
how it goes with you?
yeah, I've heard something. It was a while ago, and I can't remember if it was just something someone said on a TV show or if it was actually something that was real. That, uh, like the when your brainwaves hit a uh, certain state right before you're like when you start getting tired and start getting sleepy.
Like gamma waves or something?
Yeah, and those are supposed to be really great for creativity. So right before you, like right when you're getting ready to fall asleep, that's when you're at your most creative. And I don't know if it's real. I don't know if that's an actual true thing, but I can tell you that I experienced that. It's always like I'm like, oh, I got to go to sleep. I got to be up in like 4 hours. I need to get at least 4 hours of sleep because I'm already not going to be functional. I just need to get a little bit. And I'll be trying to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not going to sleep. This isn't working because my brain just won't shut off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, I definitely don't sleep well either. Like, as especially like 'cause during the day, I mostly it's just like go 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 between kids and getting shit done, And
Mhm.
then when it's time to like sit down and create something, like I'll even try to do it before it gets too late so that I can turn my brain off. Like sometimes I just can't stop. Like it just I mean pretty much all the time. I told you how much I sleep last podcast, and
Oh yeah, like
or the last podcast
six
we
hours
did together.
average, like three to
Yeah,
six hours.
3 to 6 hours. Yeah, it's just like because I do most of my creative work at night, and once you lay down, it doesn't turn off. And then all of a sudden, I find myself at 4 o'clock in the morning or watching the sun go up as I'm typing things into my notes on my phone at the middle of the night, pure dark. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Speaking of the other week, though, I have the Fitbit, and this thing says that I sleep for like 20 something hours a day.
Really?
Yeah, well, because when I'm asleep, I'm not moving, and then I get up and into my chair, and then uh, I go to my desk to go to work, and then for like 10 hours there, it says that I'm sleeping because I'm just sitting there typing.
That's That's crazy. I mean, that's typically like what I do too. Like I usually, cause most of my work is at my desk, so I'm like at my desk like almost all day long.
No, so like every few minutes or every like 15 minutes now, I'm like,
Shake your arms around. It's like tracking your. It thinks you're napping when you're just sitting there.
yeah.
Yeah. Um. Like, what does? I mean, for me, I don't really do anything unless I'm gonna be good at it. You know what I mean? So like,
Hmm.
I assume that you're probably the same way. So like, what does literary success look like to you then?
Literary success is uh, anybody reading anything that I've written.
So just getting your
It,
stories
it's
out there
it's
then.
it's anybody taking even the slightest amount of time out of their day after having read something that I wrote
Mhm.
and want to spend more time to leave a comment or send me an email or leave any kind of indication that they enjoyed what they read.
Yeah.
All right. Hey,
What's that?
my niece is knocking on my
Uh,
door, so I do
Cool,
gotta check
man.
that.
Yeah. We'll take an intermission. This is Buffy. This is She's a very good cat. She's a very old cat, and she is dying to sit on my keyboard. You writers at home know exactly what I'm talking about if you have a cat, because they want to be on top of whatever it is you're working on.
I'm back.
This one is
She's so.
Buffy.
Oh,
I'm going to put her down now, and I'll put pictures on Instagram or something if you guys want to see her.
I love Buffy. She's like the coolest cat.
Right? Well,
No, go ahead.
no, go ahead. You were saying something.
Oh, I was gonna say that was Maddie. She's so sweet. She was like, uh, "Is it my bedtime now?" Because it's 8 o'clock, and I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, "You're being really good, and you guys are being quiet, so
And it's the
just
weekend. It's time to party.
yeah." And I was like, just hang out in your guys' rooms and play on your iPads or something like that, and just be quiet.
Yeah. Annie sometimes she's like, I'm like, Annie, it's time for bed. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I didn't like she's up and I didn't like I'm in here like I said before, like I just get zoned in on creating stuff. And then all of a sudden, like she didn't go to bed when she was like when I tucked her in and stuff. She like got up and got food and like stayed awake. And I'll go in there like, what are you doing? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Dad, it's the weekend. This is the time to party. And she's only 8 years old. I'm like, I can't fault you. That's some good logic.
No, like you want to be mad, but you just can't at that
But
point. You're just like,
like if I was a mom, I'd probably be mad. But like I'm a dad. I can't be mad at that.
and come on, would you have thought of that when you were her age? You got to give her props.
Right?
She comes
Yeah.
back strong like that. You got to be like, yeah, got to show that respect.
Yeah. She's got spirit, you know.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of spirit, like uh some people say that writing is like a spiritual outlet for them. Does it feel like that to you?
Yeah, it does. And I never thought it would because in high school they were like, oh, we need you to write this much, and it would just even a couple paragraphs sounded daunting. And same in the one semester of college I took. So actually finding how much I like this, I would definitely say it's a spiritual outlet. Uh, if I go too long without writing, I feel not well,
Yeah.
and it's not just because I feel like, oh, I'm not writing, so I'm not a writer. Well, that too, but it's more I feel like I have so much that's in my mind that I want to get out before I die, and if I spend too long not getting those thoughts out of my head, there's not going to be enough time to get it all out before the end.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. So I have to I feel compelled and I feel great when I do it.
Yeah. I think a lot of creators run into this problem. Like how do you balance like creating is spiritual for a lot of people. Like, how do you balance that versus going to play video games with your friends or like, you know, what wins out? Like, do you feel like you owe your friends that time to go hang out with them and play video games, or like whatever it is you might be doing, go to the bar or whatever? Or do you spend that extra time fine tuning your story or whatever, like how do you balance that?
Uh, that's a good question, and I do feel like I owe some of my time to my friends because I had some really great friends in my life, and sometimes I do get sidetracked and I do neglect them, but
As we
I
all do.
oh yeah, I always care about them, and like when they remind me, hey, haven't seen you in a while, and I feel like, yeah, you know what, I haven't seen you guys either, and I gotta, I want to hang out.
Mm.
And yeah, so video games and stuff like that with friends. uh, I do have to balance the writing with that, uh, but generally, uh, I try not to drive myself into such a wedge with deadlines so that I can account for a certain degree of laziness, I guess you could
Mm.
say, or procrastination, because I don't feel like I am writing at peak performance unless I have like, very limited time left to get something done. Like the shorter amount of time I have to write something, generally I feel like I get some really good stuff out of that. That's not a guarantee though, but just for most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of that, like what is your favorite thing you've had to edit out of one of your books?
Uh, that's tough because there's probably a few things. Uh, Generally, I told you that I write stories based off of scenes or lines,
Mm.
uh, and it's generally while I'm in the pursuit of aligning a story so that I can get to that perfect scene or that perfect line, I come up with another great scene that could fit in there or another great line, and I try to weave it in to go with it. But sometimes I can't have both things because it just doesn't fit in the story because like continuity or something
Yeah.
like things like that.
Yeah.
And I've had to cut some of those, but I do keep all of that stuff. I have a folder on my computer that
Yeah.
labeled cutouts, and in there I put the highlight reels of everything that I've had to remove from stories.
Yeah.
And I keep it because I don't like to throw away good writing or good ideas.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm stuck somewhere, I'll go back to my cutouts folder and I'll just flip through it and see some of that those good scenes. And sometimes I'm able to fit them into another story or a version of it that I can adapt for it. And some people call it cheating, but it's
Mm.
like I wrote it, so I'm allowed to put it wherever the hell I want. I don't care where it was originally intended.
It's called
This is where you
efficiency,
got it.
folks.
It right? Don't waste good words.
You're right.
No, but
Uh,
yeah, so I've had to cut out stuff, and I won't go into details. Some of it was graphic, some of it's just snarky one-liners, uh, and one of them was a pretty epic fight scene that I was able to, I guess you could say, choreograph, but with my words, so that you would actually be able to visualize the fight between these two people. And I ended up going a different direction, and they weren't going to fight, so I had to get rid of it. And I was like, I spent like the better part of a week working on this because action sequences can sometimes be difficult for me because you have to provide enough details so the reader can see what's going on, but not so much that it's so bloated
mm.
that it's a slog to read through. You want them to be able to read through it at a pace which feels uh, like excitement. It's got to be quick paced.
Yeah.
And if you throw in a lot of description, oh, his left foot was here, and right arm was up here, and he had his fingers like this.
And there were
No
lines
one
in the
cares. No one.
wall.
Yeah, and then there were lines in the wall, and at this angle, the sun cast along it, appearing or making it appear as if bleeding.
I always felt like the first book of the Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan took off, dude.
It's
Like it felt like
yeah,
it was like when I first started reading it, you like half like a quarter of the way through the first chapter, and you're like, okay, I'm kind of bored. And then all of a sudden, these
shit just starts
monsters
going.
show
Yeah,
up. Yeah, and you're just like,
shit
what
hits the
just
fan.
happened?
Yeah,
Yeah. Like okay,
yeah, and then he's running for his life. Yeah.
here's a good question. In my opinion, I like this. One thing I want to know is who is your favorite character that you wrote?
I wrote a transgender character named Lexi, and I want to say that she is the most well fleshed out character that I've ever written, and the personality, not just that I gave her, but that grew on its own throughout the story, uh, was just like I didn't want to finish writing that character. I wanted to keep going, but there was a point in the story, like her story could have gone on forever, but there was a point where it was like, the main part of this story is over, you know, and not dragging it out. I ended it there, but yeah.
Yeah. How did you come up? Well, I guess how do you just come up? How do you come up with the names of your characters? Do you have a process for that?
Uh,
You could tell
s-
by some of my
s-
questions. I believe in efficient work and processes
yeah,
and
yeah. No,
repeatable
I have a
routines and stuff.
I have a process. It's try not to overuse names that I've used before. And if I can't think of one within 10 minutes of staring at that page, uh, I do one of two things. I just I give them a generic name like Jane or John, and then that way I can search for that and just auto replace all of those names,
Yeah.
and then I'll just keep writing the story, and eventually I'll find a name. Either I'll hear a name in real life and I'll be like, hey, that's a cool name, or I'll get to the point where like in the story where I'm like, okay, I know more about who this character really is now. They're starting to take on a life of their own, and then I'll try to find a meaningful name online. I'll Google like, oh, names that mean this, or something like
Yeah.
that.
Like how you mentioned that you autofill a name. Like how do you do that? Like what is the like how do you like
There's a function on like Word or most word processors that you can, like a search function, so you can
is this
search for any words.
okay? It's not like VBA or something like a program or
No,
like a programming language or anything.
no,
Okay.
no. Well, it probably is, but it's built into Microsoft Word.
Okay. Like so like so how does it like function? Like explain to me because I don't know. Short
Uh,
tutorial, I guess.
Short tutorial.
Yeah.
On the top bar of Microsoft Word, where it's got like the tools and stuff like that for like highlighting and font and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe it's on sometimes it's on the right hand side or the left. I can't remember, but there's a like a magnifying glass, and you can click on it,
Hmm.
and then it opens up a box with options so that you can like find, or like if you want to search for words. Like I always, before I publish something, I search at least 3 words: there, and there. I go through all of it and I make sure every single one of those is used correctly, because I cannot let myself be a writer and publish something with the wrong there.
So is there a way? So you search it and you look up every time the name is used. Is there a way to fill that name, like change that name everywhere
Yeah,
in the story?
there's a replace all.
Oh, okay.
So all I would do is uh, I would search for that word, and then I would replace all. So if I used the placeholder name of Jane, I would search for Jane, and then I would replace all. And if I changed her name to Kendra, I'd change it to Kendra, and then it would automatically change all instances of Jane in the text, as long as it's spelled correctly, to that one spelling for Kendra.
Okay. So do you um edit like every chunk of your writing then, or do you wait till the end to edit?
I spell check and basic grammar check just whatever's red squiggly or blue squiggly or whatever
Yeah,
underlined.
yeah.
And I normally do it by document page. Once I get towards the end of a page, I'll go up and I'll be like, oh, I see a bunch of red marks, because I just stare at my keyboard and zone out and just start smashing.
Mm.
Uh, so about every page, I go back and I do the spelling and grammar,
Something
and then
short and
yeah,
digestible quickly.
yeah, and then I go to the next page. But after I'm done with that draft, I'll go through it again from the very beginning. And I generally make small changes to just about every paragraph. And I go through, and as I go through it line by line, I'm actually having the Microsoft Word read it back to me so that I can hear it being read. So my eyes are not glossing over my mistakes because I'm just seeing what I want to see.
Right. Oh, because you wrote it, so
Yeah.
you kind of know what it's supposed to say, and so you just fill in the blanks, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, when do you know it's ready to go to an editor, or something like that?
In the beginning, you don't. You will stare at it, you'll read through it like 9 times, keep finding errors every time, and then you're like, uh, then you'll second guess yourself for another few weeks, and then you'll eventually bite the bullet and send it off to an editor. Now, now when I write something, I go through that initial process of writing, and then I go through my one read through, looking for my mistakes, looking for continuity and stuff like that, and then I send it off to my editor.
Like, how do
It
you
usually takes like a day or two.
gotcha. How do you find an editor? Like, how does that process look?
Um, it was hard for me to find my first one. I used a really popular writing website,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a forum, and there was a section where you could, uh, post that you were looking for an editor, and then people would contact you and they'd ask you about your writing and genres and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were into the same kind of stuff, or some people just didn't care what you were writing, they were just willing to edit anything. And that's how I found my first one. But you find a good editor, one that actually cares about your work, from after they've read your first few pieces of work or chapters in a story. And then they're like, yeah, this is a really great story. I can help you make it better because I'm seeing all of these errors. They normally come to you. They're like, hey, can I help you edit? And then it's like, yeah. But as far as like finding a professional, like pay them lots and lots of money, there are websites for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have $600 to pay them every time I want them to edit a short story.
Right. Like, so when you post to like a site for reading and stuff, do you read your book review? Like, people leave you reviews and stuff.
Every single one of them. And
Like, how do you?
if I'm having a really crappy day, I'll go back and I'll read all of the old ones too. All the ones that I've already read, because there's so many of I've forgotten what they all say.
Mhm.
So sometimes I'll go back and I'll be like, I don't remember reading this one. And then it feels like I'm getting like that compliment all over again.
Like, have you had any negative ones?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Like, how
One
do you take
like
that?
um, in the beginning, I took it pretty hard.
Yeah.
Now, haters are gonna hate.
Yeah.
The numbers speak for themselves. In the people reading it and all the other comments, the vast majority of people like it, and the ones that are negatively commenting are either they are in the wrong genre and they read through the entire thing just so they can tell me that they read a story in a genre that they don't like,
Mm. Yeah.
or they're like
You're like, why are you
they're
reading this then?
nitpicking. Yeah, they're nitpicking like, oh, uh, you know, uh, you use the wrong form of descent. Oh, yeah, you use the wrong form of descent, or you use the wrong. You use waste instead of wastes. That happened to me a couple times. That doesn't anymore. That's one of the words I search. Make sure
Right.
I search both of those. Make sure I didn't use one incorrectly.
Oh,
I've got a list of those.
you're supposed to use hath in passive form.
Or don't you know when to use whom or a semicolon? I do now.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Making me better.
Sometimes I'll like I even got I use Google Translate, and I trusted Google to translate a phrase into Latin for me, and I uh, I used it in a story, and in one of the comments, a Latin major left a comment breaking down the exact wording that I was looking for, like my original intent for the wording, broke down every single word in the phrase to show me what it should have been, but it was in such a great way, like educational, not snarky or dickish. It was just he was like, "This is what you're supposed to see," and then at the end of it, he was like, "If you want me to translate more Latin, hit me up." So I was like,
That's
you know,
cool.
like it was, and like those kind of like constructive criticism comments, I love those, especially like if people point out that like. Uh, uh,
Let's
okay,
make sure
let's yeah,
people know that you mean constructive criticism and not
yes,
just
constructive,
criticism. You know,
yeah,
not just being an
yeah.
asshole, like saying, "Oh, you
If
did this
yeah,
wrong. This is how you could fix it." You're like, "Oh, thanks."
mhm.
You know.
Yeah, like anything like that. Sometimes I even get people that email me, and they're like, "Oh, I saw you wrote this short story. It was a standalone. Uh, are you going to be finishing more of it up? Or are you going to be adding to it?" And I'm like, I don't have anything planned just right now, but maybe in the future if I can think of something. And then I've had people respond back to me, and they're like, uh, "Well, what about this? And what if you can do this?" And the story can go here now. And then sometimes they get those, and I'm like, yeah, that's that really helps, and I always give them credit in the story. This person helped me out.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, how many
But
reads do you have? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. We'll come
oh
back to
no,
that question.
no, I was just saying that uh, sometimes I their ideas are like I go with their ideas
Hmm.
and use that as a building block, and sometimes like just one phrase or a couple words in their like ideas spark something, and I end up going in a completely different direction. But it's just sometimes like those interactions, like I read every single one of them, and i think about I think about them as I'm
Hmm.
reading them, and sometimes long after. And just those people reaching out to me have inspired new stories.
Like, have you ever had one that like made you think differently, like overall, like had a big impact?
I think it was 8 months into my writing adventure, 8 months after I posted my first story, because I posted uh, I was posting the story in installments while I was teaching myself how to write, and I posted the first two like pretty close together within about a month, and then I didn't write anything for about another 4 to 5 months or something like that, and then I the next time I posted something, uh, one of the very first comments I've got started, "The Bard is back," and went on to heap praise onto what I had written. And I knew it was just flattery, but my work being referenced in the same sentence to William Shakespeare was like an insane ego boost. And the comments that followed that uh, kind of told me that I had actually found like something that I was good at, that people were uh, engaging with the stuff that I wrote. Not only engaging, but waiting for me to finish. Like saying, "Hey, yeah, we've been checking. I've been checking back, every week to see if there's something more posted for this." And yeah, but that first one that started, "The Bard is back," was a uh, a big turning point. I've had other ones that have affected me as well. Uh, People explaining to me how my stories have changed or affected their lives, their actual real lives, not just in their head and online, or how something I've written has inspired them. Those are incredible as well. But I think at the time, when I got that comment, it was exactly what I needed to hear at exactly the right time, because I was unsure if I wanted to continue. I pushed out the first two chapters, and then I started realizing exactly how long it was supposed that story was going to be, which was about 250,000 words
Mm.
when it ended. Uh, but I wasn't sure if I was going to continue on, and I just decided to try one more chapter, and and hearing that was something that pushed me to say, hey, I can be this good. I can actually I can aspire to be great, and you know uh, based on what I'd been hearing, I had already had a good head start.
Yeah.
So
Like you said earlier that you taught yourself to write because you went to college but you didn't finish, right? Like how did you?
I did one semester.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So you didn't finish.
Yeah.
Like
I
so
didn't
how did
finish
you
some of the
teach it?
classes in that semester.
Right. You said you taught yourself to write. Like how? What did that process look like? What did you do? Like what was the mental like?
How did I
What?
prepare myself for that?
Yeah. Like
Accidentally. I being in a wheelchair and being depressed, I spent a lot of time reading, and I found that book series by Robert Jordan, The Wheel of Time, and when I had started reading it, there was only like
much recommended.
yeah, there was only like 9 books at the time, or 8 or 9 books. So I read through the entire series, and then I had to wait for the next book. And the next book came out like 8 months later, and right before it came out, I was like, I'm going to read through the series again, refresh it in my mind, because this is an excellent story. Read the next book, and then when the following book came out, I did the same thing. And then 14 books later, I had read through the series probably like 9 times. And it sounds obsessive, but it is such an excellent story. And every time you reread it, you see something that you missed before, because it is such a huge world.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed by how drawn in I was to that. And accidentally, through reading that and a few other series and some other books and stuff like that, I started picking up on how people wrote things, how people talked, how dialogue was constructed. I didn't really focus in on how they wrote scenes or paragraph structures or anything like that, but I had a basic idea from my reading knowledge. And from there, I just started winging it mostly. I didn't look up articles on how to write. I didn't look up articles on how to use a comma, which I didn't know how to do at the time, not to any real success. Uh, but as I, like, little by little, as I went on, uh, my editor would tell me, hey, you really need to cut this out and learn how to use a damn comma, because this is a lot of work.
It's
It would be
there, not
so,
there.
yeah, no, but no, but little things like that, and I learned how to improve like that. It was just that I was good at telling a story. I don't know if I was great at being a writer, but I was good at telling a story, and I was good at, I guess, natural dialogue. So those two things together were enough to impress people with my stories, and then from there, I built my writing capabilities. Uh, I continued to read, and after I started writing, I started uh, my process for reading had changed. It wasn't that I was just doing it to zone out and drift into a different world, and uh, I did it, and I started looking at how they structured things, how they were using descriptions, how much descriptions were they really giving me, and how much of what I was seeing in my head was just things that I filled in. And because when you're writing, you want to use the least amount of words to draw the biggest picture.
Yeah.
And so when I kept reading more, and that's how I learned.
Yeah. So TLDR, I wanted to learn to write, so I wrote.
I could, yeah, I guess I could have said it really quickly like that.
No, no, no. That's good. Um, so how many reads do you have? Uh, you said you were posting to a posting your writing to a popular website.
Yes, and it actually, I can tell you how many reads I have on this website. I can't do it on the other ones. This one has a function where I can pull it up. And give me 1 second. I think it's north of 1 or 2 million, something like that.
Wow, that's good. That's really good. Does your family support your career as a writer, or aspiring to be a really great author?
Yeah, actually, my mom and dad were incredibly supportive of it. And 1,800,000, 800, sorry, 1,831,829
For the
as
exact
of
number,
today.
for everybody out there
Yeah,
wondering.
yeah, 1.8 million reads. Uh, but that's over like 5 or 6 years. So I don't know exactly
It's
how
still
impressive that's supposed to
it's
be compared to maybe like a famous author. I mean, they sell that many books a year or
right,
more.
but still nothing to laugh at. Like that's still big a big accomplishment, and a lot of people would be happy with that. You said you have a Patreon, right?
Yes, I do.
I mean, how do you? Is that stressful trying to keep up with writing and not letting people that are fans of you, that are fan enough to pay? You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
is that a stressful thing to make sure you're taking care of them? Keeping your end of the bargain.
Yes, it is. And there's actually been a month where I uh, waived all the Patreon fees because I couldn't meet my exact uh, 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 monthly promises.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to meet most of them, but not all of them. So I waived the fees for that month because hey, uh, I said I was going to give you this, and you only got this and this. So
Yeah.
and it's not like I'm using that as my main source of income
Mm-hmm.
right now. It's one day I'll get enough in there to maybe buy like a brand new Xbox or something like that, or a new or eventually there will be enough in there so I can buy like a really good PC rig
Yeah.
and just like get it decked out. But to me, like I actually use it to be more of a driving force because when I started it, I was at a point where uh, I was kind of slacking off on writing and I was only really posting something every 2 to 3 months. And I was like, well, if I have a Patreon, I know how fast I can write something. If I had a Patreon, that would push me uh, to be more on top of my game, to take less breaks, to actually strive to do more. Kind of like you wanting to start a podcast or YouTube channels or anything like that. Like you decided uh, that you wanted to do something and you had to start somewhere, and you needed to have a motivation to keep going. So uh,
You need some thrust
there you
to
go.
push you past all of the bumps in the road.
Exactly. Like all the little things like, hey, I can play video games today, or hey, maybe I should uh, uh, do this or go work out, or hey, there's a cool TV show on that I want to watch. Those little speed bumps, or like people going, hey, going to the bar, you want to hang out today, or uh, you want to chill. Like all of those little things that pop up throughout your day that say, hey, let's not work. The Patreon is that constant reminder that says, hey,
It's time to work.
do your effing job.
Yeah.
Do your job first, then play.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like what is the most difficult part of like your artistic process?
I'm gonna say it's gonna be writer's block. Uh, I found a way to get past it to a degree. When I get blocked, I just sidestep it and leave it behind, and then go to the next scene that I see in my head, even if it's just starting with a piece of dialogue that's supposed to be happening later on, and I'll just keep writing. If I'm stopped for more than like 60 seconds and I can't figure out what to write next, I'll just move on.
Hmm.
But going back afterwards and filling in those gaps sometimes, uh, you can only sidestep writer's block for so long. If you don't figure it out by that time, then you're sitting there staring at it, racking your brain for some way to get this part to tie into this part without screwing up all of these other parts.
All right. Speaking of that, like what was your hardest scene to write then? Of all of your books or stories?
I'm trying to think, and I'm gonna have to say it was that one fight scene that I was talking about that I never used.
Yeah.
Just a lot of action, a lot of things to describe that were going on. It was pretty intense,
Mhm.
and to get it right to where it felt natural to read it, and like a reader wouldn't stumble over it.
Mhm.
Like that was really hard.
Yeah.
Multiple moving parts in any descriptions are very difficult, for me at least.
Yeah. Like one of my favorite scenes from The Wheel of Time was the Aiel scene when they raise their veils.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
when they're ready for killing.
yeah, like that first scene when they were all. I think it. I can't remember. I think it was like when Rand took. I think when he was on, like he had just taken the throne. I can't remember exactly now. It's been a while.
The Stone of Tyr,
Yeah,
and in
yeah,
the veil escort or the Aiel escorted them in with their veils up,
yeah.
and everybody was just like stone still, like thinking that they're about to die.
Yeah,
and
such a
and
good
he was
story.
just, yeah, because he was walking like in the middle of them, like surrounded by them, and they have their veils up, and like he's walking like there's not even a problem, and everyone else is pissing themselves pretty much.
Yeah, like
Which, yeah,
that must have
it
been
was so real
such
too.
a fun scene to like write.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah.
I would love to be a fly on the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I read scenes like that, and like there are those scenes that you read in books that just like, oh man, you get the feels from them. Like
Yeah.
you get that little catch in your throat, tightness in your chest, and you're like, I'm not gonna cry, or I'm not gonna get emotional. This isn't. I'm not feeling this feeling of like immense pride in this character.
Yeah.
I'm not that invested in a fake person, really. But no, but it happens, and I read those things, and I feel I feel jealous, but I also at the same time I'm like I can respect how incredibly well they wrote that scene, and not just that scene, but for a scene like that to work, like that's the kind of scene that I initially see,
Mhm.
and I'm like, okay, I want that to be the huge part of my story. I want that to happen. And then I'm like, so how do I get there? And
Mhm.
that's basically where I go. So I see scenes like that are like really incredible.
Like, do you think
And
you can?
yeah,
Do you think you could be a good writer and not feel emotions like that strong? You know?
uh, I you might be able to, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
Like
think so
my
either.
personal opinion, I believe if you were like completely like analytical and you did the research, and you broke down every minutia of the like in your head as you were going, but I believe it would take a severe amount of effort to do it with no emotion,
Yeah, I know.
like way more than it was worth.
Yeah, like writing songs, I really think I put myself into a bad mental space because
Mhm.
I would force myself into an emotional situation so I can write. Um,
And I understand that because like I only really got some really good writing uh, when I was like peak or not writing, well, writing for music.
mm,
I only was able to get really creative like that when I was on some emotional high, whether it was just like feeling really great, or feeling really bad.
Yeah, it
It,
really,
it was like if I was anxious or just like ambivalent, like I couldn't come up with anything.
it's really a bipolar kind of art form for me. Like I really
Yeah.
have to put myself in extreme situation, like extreme emotional situations to write to get the points I want to get across properly and be able to tell the stories through the song that
Yeah,
I want
your
to.
emotion has to match.
What's like one thing I imagine is being one thing I imagine being difficult is like putting yourself into the let, let me rephrase this. So when you're writing, you need to put yourself in the shoes of your character. How
Mhm.
difficult is that when you're putting yourself in the shoes of the opposite sex? Like how do you figure out like what they're actually feeling when you don't even have the same hormones to feel what they're feeling, you know what I mean? Like how do you navigate that?
Um, I I've read some extremely horribly written female characters by male authors,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, so I know where the shame threshold is for writing like bad female characters, and I try to aim for a very high bar on
Mm-hmm.
that as far as knowing like or being able to feel how they feel. Uh, I can try and empathize, but to be honest, I can't ever tell you what a woman is feeling
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not a woman. But I can use uh, people I know and emotions that I've seen in situations that that I can extrapolate to build a realistic person. But at the same time, if I have any second thoughts, even in the slightest, I will send those off to my editor. Be like, hey, tell me what you think about this character. When you're reading through it, just focus in on this character and tell me if how you feel about that person. I won't give it away. I won't be like, hey, I think I might have wrote her too bitchy, or I think I might have wrote her too weak, or too strong, or too assertive, or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to taint her opinion. I want her to read it and be like, hey, yeah, this feels like a real person. I,
I
I, I
think
see what
that's
you're trying to do with that character,
yeah.
but I
I
just
think
have them focus on that while they're going through it so they can give me that opinion. Like they know that that's the important part that I'm looking for.
yeah. I think that's an advantage is if you're a male author, try to get a female editor to see if you're writing things
Oh,
properly. You know.
yeah, I even get beta readers.
Mm-hmm.
So even after my editor goes through it, I'll get a couple other people so that I can get a more broader uh, view of or broader analysis of my work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask them to read through it, and I'll tell them be as harsh as you can be or as you need to be.
Yeah.
Uh, if it's complete garbage in your eyes, tell me that, but also try to tell me why. Because I don't care if you tell me it's bad, as long as you can tell me what precisely was bad, then I can fix that or I can work with it.
Yeah. Do you ever like beta read for other authors or anything like that?
Yes, I have, and I've given some constructive criticism. I've had some that have not messaged me back after I've sent them back my notes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I told them that I wouldn't do it halfway because I wouldn't be uh, the kind of author that would uh, pander to you just because you look up to me.
Yeah.
If you want to be like, I will hold you to the same standard that I hold myself, and because I believe that we can all grow as long as we take the information that we get, and as long as that information is constructive.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, oh, this character felt a little soft or wooden, and I don't really know what his motivation is. I don't know why he's there. So I give him like sometimes it'll be like maybe I'll say maybe he's this or he's here for this reason, and try to give them like a little bit of a nudge saying to look deeper into why that character is there or why this is happening in the scene or something that might be missing. Like, oh, these people were fighting, but I didn't feel the the imminent danger between them. I didn't feel like anybody's life was in peril. we all understand inherently that the hero is going to win and survive like 90% of the time because there are tragedies.
Mm.
But
Game of Thrones.
yeah, yeah, everybody, pretty much everybody you want to live dies on that one.
Well, then, like, have you read any of those authors and just been like, wow, like this is an underappreciated author? Yeah.
I have one, and I actually had read one of his stories before I even started writing because I had been reading on that website for a while, like for
Mhm.
over a decade. And then when I decided to start writing, I was like, hey, this is going to be a perfect forum for me. I'd be able to get enough feedback. And he was in my favorited authors lists, and I remembered his name because he had a cool name. And I saw that he had posted a comment on one of my stories
That
because it
must have
tells
given you a
me,
boner.
yeah, yeah, I was about as hard as you can be. No, like, yeah, and his comment was incredibly nice, and uh, and he actually even emailed me, and we emailed back and forth a few times, and he wrote a story that another story series that I followed while I was finishing writing one of my series,
Mhm.
and it blew me away. The concept for it blew me away. I was so jealous of his ability to develop this story in this world, and but like at the same time I was just glad that I got to read it. And it's popular, but I mean it's popular enough that it should be like mainstream. Like it did so well in this type of audience
Mhm.
that someone should have picked it up and turned it into like a mini series. And he's doing another series now that I'm following that's also incredible. But me and him talk frequently,
Yeah.
and yeah, so I have uh, yeah, I have authors that I think that are severely underappreciated,
Yeah.
or I guess not underappreciated because everyone that reads their work knows that work's worth. They know that it's a good story,
Do you
but
have
I think
any?
it's just unrecognized or unsung, I guess would be the
Yeah.
correct
Do,
way.
do, do you have any that you like had to grow to like then? Like where you started off, you're like, oh, this is awful. But then like you kind of grew into it.
Um, the random
Because Stephen
stories
King
that
was
I
like that for me, to be honest. Like
yeah,
he's a great writer, but I wasn't into him when I was younger. But then as I got older, I liked it a bit more.
there are a few like really popular series on that site
Mhm.
by some pretty prolific writers that I've tried to get into, and some of them are like that where they're just a little hard starting, or they do really well, but they flounder in the second act because that's when they were trying to develop it into a series and they didn't know where they were going precisely yet. Um,
Mm.
they were a little hard to get going with,
Yeah.
but they're and I've seen it go both ways too, where I just felt kind of disappointed with the ending, but there's been other times where uh, it finally got over that speed hump,
Yeah.
and it was just all downhill from there. And when I say downhill, I mean like a fucking roller coaster, because I was holding on for dear life. I was just burning through pages. Uh,
Like, do you prefer like to write? Because you were talking before about writing series. Do you like writing like a standalone book, or do you prefer a
I
series?
I prefer longer form writing. It's much more difficult. There's a lot more to keep track of, but the shorter stories I can do them well,
Mhm.
and I can do them to where a short story feels like you can connect with the characters uh, the same way as a longer story. But a short story, um,
I guess what I'm asking is, do you
I
prefer?
like the depth.
See, like, okay, I think I asked the question wrong, because what I
Okay.
meant, because what I mean by that is, do you prefer, like when I read a book, like The Wheel of Time in particular has a lot of books, like 14, right?
Hmm.
Like, I prefer to read a book that has a lot to it, so I can like kind of dive into like the universe that this author has created. It's like, like maybe Star Wars is like that, or the Marvel Cinematic
Yeah,
Universe.
when I read a book series, or when I read a book, like I kind of judge if I want to read it by the length of the series.
Right, like,
And
because I could
now
emotionally
if it's
involve
completed,
those characters.
yeah. And now I don't start a series unless it is completed.
Oh,
Like
because
I can't do Game of Thrones. I can't wait forever for that to, I can't wait forever for that to finish, because uh, I had to wait for Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson to finish The Wheel of Time, and I had to wait uh, like 7 or 8 years from when I started to get to the last book. So
yeah, that's
c-
that's awful.
compared to other people, that's a short amount of time,
Yeah,
but for me, that felt like a really long time.
yeah. Um, I guess we can finish with. Have you ever, like, what is some advice that you've gone through that you can give to other people of traps or pitfalls of the early stages of becoming a writer? Like, is there any advice you can give to people about that?
Too much research. There's a point where research is going to be counterproductive. Do you like uh, when I first started out, I uh, downloaded a calendar program so that I could track the days of for my characters, because I thought that I had to be really strict on, you know, oh, it's if it was Wednesday here and this is supposed to be 3 days later, then it can't be Sunday, or it can't be Sunday the next day. Like I was trying to keep track of things like that, or keep track. Like I was trying to micromanage like every hour of every day while I was plotting out a story,
Mm.
and I realized I didn't need to do that. Uh,
Well, how do you do it?
Mainly, how do
Uh,
I do it
yeah, sorry, I know
now?
I said that was the last question, but that
How
led in perfectly. So,
uh, how do I do it?
like, how do you track
I
a timeline for such a, I mean, with multiple books and
extensive
stuff,
story
like an extensive story. How do you track a
for a
timeline like that?
big story like that,
Yeah.
uh, with extreme difficulty. You would need initially. I would start with a very basic timeline. Like, okay, this is the beginning of the story, so this is like day zero, and day zero, I automatically know where the story begins because I wrote the damn thing, uh, or I've envisioned it. So I know that this is where they're here, they're this city, they're this place. This is where the story starts, and then I have the next thing that's going to need to happen. I don't need to know what I don't need to know how they get from there to the next point yet. I just need to know the next thing. So then this needs to happen. This is going to initiate the rest of the entire story. This was the introduction. This is the catalyst. And then from there, I go step by step on for the major plot points. And as far as like the details for the characters, anything large, you're going to want to have characters for. You're going to want to have a separate document in a folder for each character in your story, whether it's a simple description of hair color or eye color, because you will forget.
Hmm.
Even your main character, you won't remember. It's gonna be like that girlfriend that closed her eyes and asked you what color they were, and and you're gonna be dumped because you don't know. So you're gonna have basically a driver's license worth of information on each character at least,
Wow.
and then just so that you can reference back. Timeline, uh, anything longer than 100,000 words or one novel, you're getting into like some pretzel theory, quantum time crap that I don't even know how to do. I'm still figuring out. I'm not sure how I finished the first series that was 250 words long, or 250,000 words long.
Yeah.
Like I finished that and I posted it and I was like, did I really just finish this? Like, did I really just finish it well? Uh, Most of the stuff that I plot out now, I don't type it out and I don't make documents. I keep like most of the scenes, the imagery for the scenes is in my head. And all I need is the notes, like the little note for the scene. Oh, these two people meet. I already know I can remember in my head exactly what that scene's supposed to look like. Sometimes I might have an additional note dinner, but as far as plotting goes, um, I try to do as little plotting for details as I can, and as much time writing the actual stories as I can. Because I've gotten to the point where I've spent more time researching, or not just researching, but just writing notes from the research
Mhm.
than I have writing. I think one of my stories had 30,000 words worth of notes, and the story itself was 18,000 when I finished writing it. Because I
Yeah.
had backgrounds for characters going back to elementary school.
Hmm.
Granted, those characters were very realistic, but I might not have needed to know who their favorite elementary school teacher was.
Because I think one of the most important things of writing a story is, um, you know, character development and the development of what's going on in your world, like what political things are going on in the world. Like
Things
there,
can't
there,
stay
there
the same. They
there
have to
needs
change and
yeah
evolve.
there needs to be layers to make it interesting. You know what I mean? Like layers of complexity.
It's
But yeah.
like uh, it's like asshole characters with redemption arcs. They're
Mm.
still bad characters. You still don't like them, but at least you can understand them now. And that understanding of why they're an asshole uh, makes that character more interesting. You no longer just hate them because you hate them. You hate them, but you understand. You can still sympathize.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good spot to end it, since I told you it was the last question about 4 questions ago. So,
Oh, we're good. All right.
but yeah, for everybody at home, thank you for listening to or watching the Dime Store Dollar podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.
All right. Later.